Well, a fight over real estate between giants Zillow and Compass is boiling over as Zillow's new policy banning some listings from its website goes into effect.
With all of the drama around private exclusives, you would think that the MLS is just the surface, and underneath, there's this whole other world of transactions that's driving the housing market in ways we can't measure. And honestly, why wouldn't you believe that? Compass is kind of building an entire business model around private exclusives. Zillow is terrified enough to sue over it. Agents are whispering about pocket listings. Investors are supposedly gobbling up houses before they ever hit the market at rock bottom prices. What if the MLS data is only half the story? What if there is a crash happening in the off market that we can't even see? And if you're a buyer, you have to kind of wonder, am I seeing all the inventory? Is there a secret club I'm not in? Is that where all the deals are going? How would we even know? Well, believe it or not, every real estate transaction gets recorded at the county. On market, off market, investors, iBuyers, wholesale flips. So if we went to the county, matched back the MLS listings, and then figured out just how big this non-MLS market is it massive? Is it growing? Is it where the smart money is going? Well, I did exactly that. And believe it or not, I was shocked. The data actually changed my perspective on what's happening with real estate in Nashville. So I'm going to give you my conclusions. We're going to figure out what's true, what's smoke and mirrors, and we're going to do it by deep diving into Davidson County. Now, for context, Greater Nashville is a 9-county market in the Middle Tennessee. Davidson County sits right in the middle. It's the urban core, it's the heart of Nashville, and it represents about 30% of all transactions. So if there is a massive secret off-market movement happening anywhere, it should be happening right here first. So if the shadow market is real, Davidson County is where we'll find it. So here's what I did. I went to Davidson County deed records, every sale that's been recorded for the past 5 years, and I matched those deeds back to the MLS listings. If a deed had no matching MLS listing, that's an off-market sale. It's a simple concept, and there were some things I had to pair out, like quitclaim deeds or zero priced sales, transfers that weren't really true sales. Claude did most of the heavy lifting. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that, but I still had to provide the data. I had to check the output. I had to go back and pressure check everything. I spent a lot of time on this because if I'm going to tell you something that fundamentally changes how you think about the housing market, I wanted to make sure that I was right. Now, all of this data is publicly recorded on the county level. You can theoretically go do this. I will tell you it's a lot harder than it sounds theoretically, but there's nothing secret about it, which is kind of ironic. The data that exposes the secret market is sitting there in public records for anyone to go pull. So what did I find? Well, 2021, Davidson County had almost 16,600 MLS sales. In 2025, that number was 10,600. This is like a 35% drop in MLS transactions. And most people already knew that there was a dramatic drop from 21 to 25. This is one of the reasons people think that the housing market's going to crash. This has been a transaction crash. But here's what blew my mind. In 2021, I counted almost 10,000 off-market transactions. 10,000. That's a huge number. By 2025, that number had dropped to 2,400. Now, I did have to measure the tail end of 2025 a little differently from September through the end of the year. So it is possible that a small methodology change on the latter part of the year might have changed or understated what I'm telling you slightly, but the direction is accurate. So let me ask you this. Where did those 7,500 transactions disappear to? Did all those investors just evaporate? Did all those pocket listings just stop happening? This is the off market. This is the secret non-MLS market that Compass is fighting to protect and Zillow is fighting to destroy, but it's been shrinking for 5 years straight. So why are they even fighting over it? Now, I want to hear from your perspective on this. Does that even surprise you? The real question is, why is it even shrinking? I think one of the reasons it's shrinking is because it doesn't make sense to invest in Nashville right now. For most investors, it just doesn't pencil. And so think about who was driving those off-market sales. Almost 70% of them are investors. It was wholesalers. It was iBuyers and builders scooping up lots where they would scrape them and build much larger, more expensive houses. When the math stops working, those people stop buying. So here's my question. If Compass is building their brand around private exclusives and the private market is shrinking this dramatically, what are they actually selling? Are they selling access to a market that barely exists anymore? And is Zillow fighting a war over a pie that's already been eaten? I mean, I would love to hear what you think. Do you agree or disagree? Is there something I'm missing in this? Now, here's where it gets really important. And honestly, this is the part that changed my thinking about the whole thing. See, on the MLS side, Davidson County actually grew slightly from about 10,300 sales in 24 to 10,600 sales in 25. The MLS market is growing for the first time in years. And before I did this analysis, I would have told you that the market must be recovering. The MLS is growing, so the market's growing. And that seems logical. But when you add in what's happening off market, the total picture is actually very different. The off market is still shrinking. And when you combine MLS and off market together holistically, the Davidson County real estate market is still contracting. Total transactions have not recovered. They're still going down. So the question is, has the market been recovering or has it just been reshuffling? Are we actually seeing more activity, or should we consider the off-market sellers being part of the total real estate market and it's still shrinking? I would love to hear your perspective on that. If you're an agent or an investor, what do you think? Should we look at the market differently? Does your gut match with the data? Does this jive with what you're experiencing? Compass private exclusive listings, are they getting traction as much as they used to? Personally, I think it makes perfect sense, especially in the ultra luxury, the high end, why the off market would disappear. I mean, there is a motivation factor here that nobody's talking about. The harder it is to sell your home, the more likely you're going to list it anywhere and everywhere. The MLS is the perfect place to list a house you can't sell. So sellers who used to be able to move properties quietly off market through their network, I mean, they can't do that anymore. They need the exposure. They need the eyeballs. So ask yourself, what does it mean when sellers who used to have the luxury of selling privately are now being forced into the open market? What does that tell you about demand? And what does it tell you about where we're headed? Let me give you some current market context that we need to think through here. Now, active listings across greater Nashville, all 9 counties, single-family homes, they're growing at an 11% pace year over year. Now, this is really important, and it's been really consistent this year. Consistent even as last year this week, we had the same growth again this week this year. That tells me that we're on pace to potentially hit 10,000 active listings, single-family homes, by mid-July. Now, why does that matter? Because I believe last year when we hit 9,000, there was a tipping point for price. This is where sellers who didn't have to sell just pushed pause. It's where the motivated sellers started coming out of the woodwork. So what happens if we blow past 9,000 and we keep going, we hit 10,000? Are we going to see a lot of downward pressure if we hit that point again? With off-market sellers no longer having this secret market that they used to have, could that number grow even more this year? What do you think? It's important to realize that the typical buyer didn't disappear, okay? There are the same number of buyers on the MLS, slightly more now that we're looking, and they're paying about the same amount of money. That's what the median sales price is, and the median sales price is basically flat. That's what buyers are paying. Zillow measures what sellers are getting, and they're reporting slight home value decline in Nashville. None of this is dramatic, but it kind of makes you wonder, how can they report a decline and the median price go up? And it really just depends on whether or not you're looking through a buyer lens or a seller lens. Buyers are paying the same, but they're getting more value for the same amount of money. The value of a $500,000 house today is immensely higher than it was last year. It's immensely higher because there's more options, there's better locations, and you get a higher quality house than you could have got a year ago. That's a big win, even if prices, quote unquote, are staying the same. So who's really losing here? I believe it's the sellers, and nobody's talking about that because of prices being so flat. It's very hard to communicate just how hard of a time sellers are having. Sellers are giving away way more than they had to give previously. If you're a seller watching this, I would be curious, does this match your experience? I mean, there are still some hot spots where sellers are still doing very well. Now, one other crazy part that we have to talk about is March is going to come in hot. Now, I know you guys are watching the headlines right now and you're like, Ethan, you're crazy. March is not coming in hot. But look, I'm telling you, Greater Nashville contracts are up high single digits, 6.5%. Davidson County is up over 8% year over year on the MLS. They are going to report, if this continues for another week, they will report, in spite of mortgage rate increase, pending sales come in smoking hot, and everybody's going to cheer the market. And look, there's a couple things you have to think about here. One, a lot of this is just recovery from a really bad February. But the other piece is that rising rates pull buyers in. I know many of you are suspicious of this claim, but I'm telling you, watch the data, watch the reports. The year over year mortgage rates are lower than they were last year, unless there's a massive economic change or a massive structural change in our migration. We're going to see buyers get sucked in by the rates rising, and you will see a hotter than expected report in March. And again, I think it's a false signal. As rates continue to rise, especially if they go positive year over year, you're going to see a big dampening effect in April and May if this doesn't change. We're also seeing agents be bearish on this market. They're listing prices at a lower price. I had a buyer who just scooped one up last week for $1.25 million. He got it. It immediately had offers higher and better than what he got. I think he hit a home run. He may have $100,000 in equity by the time he closes, although he was not able to ask for anything in his inspection because of it. But if you're on top of the data and you're involved in your market, you can jump on well-priced listings very quickly. But I want to hear your take. I mean, is the off-market collapse a sign that Nashville is softer than we thought? Am I reading too much into it? Is it just an investor world that really doesn't impact the MLS world? If you're an agent, an investor, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Agree, disagree? I want to hear all of it. And with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Thanks for watching.